everyone, I'm CA Vaibhav Jain and today's topic is on your screen, cash generating unit containing goodwill. It is a part of India's 36 impairment of assets. So I have decided to make some short videos, more of short videos like this, which will be covering important concepts from the bigger Ind AS. There is a separate video on Ind AS 36 which you can watch before watching this video, and here I'll be covering CGU containing goodwill and its impairment, etc. So in this video we'll be covering four things. First will be the brief intro, terms and definitions. Secondly, I have made a topic asset classification and impairment review. Thirdly will be how a CGU with goodwill is impaired, and fourth is the reversal of the impairment. So let's jump on to the first topic, and before that do like this video, share this video and also subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. So brief intro of Ind AS 36, Ind AS 36 impairment of assets. So the question arises, when do we impair and why do we impair? So impairment is done after testing impairment indicators, and impairment indicators are explained in the main video. There are basically two types of indicators, external and internal indicators. So based on the indicators, any entity decides to check for impairment of assets, and impairment is done when the carrying amount of the asset, that is the book value of the asset, is higher than the recoverable amount of the asset, that is the value which we expect the asset to generate for us. So we do impairment of asset in those cases. Now we have two terms, carrying amount and recoverable amount. So we will define both of those terms. Carrying amount is nothing but the cost minus accumulated depreciation minus accumulated impairment loss. So this was the easy term. Now coming to recoverable amount, as I had also explained in the main video, recoverable amount is nothing but the higher amount of fair value less cost of disposal and value in use, higher. So fair value less cost of disposal is nothing but fair value as per Ind AS 113 minus the cost of disposal of the asset, and value in use is the present value for all the future cash flows we expect the asset to generate for us. So both of these terms, whichever is the higher amount is our recoverable amount, and if the recoverable amount is less than our carrying amount, then we impair our asset as per Ind AS 36. This was a brief intro. Now I'm jumping on to our topic for the day, cash generating unit. So before coming to the definition, I'll explain the concept and what is the need of a CGU. Sometimes it happens that any entity has an asset which is generating cash flows for the entity. For example, asset A. Now asset A cannot generate cash flows unless and until it is grouped or functioning with asset B. So asset A generates cash flows along with asset B, but independently it cannot generate cash flows, and such a scenario leads to grouping of asset A and asset B for the purpose of Ind AS 36. So asset A and asset B will be classified as a CGU, cash generating unit. So cash generating unit as per Ind AS 36 is the smallest identifiable group of assets which generates cash flows largely independent of cash flows from other assets or group of assets. So cash generating unit CGU will generate cash flows independent of CGU B, CGU C, that is any other CGU or any other individual asset. The CGU will generate independent cash flows, and it should be a smallest identifiable group of assets. That is, it should not include unnecessary assets which are generating cash flows independently. Now moving on to CGU terms and definitions. The purpose of this slide was to cover the definition of carrying amount. See, recoverable amount is same as that for individual assets which I covered in the previous slide. Carrying amount has a bit of complication for CGU. The A point says that the carrying amount of CGU shall include the carrying amount of the assets, that is fine. But the B point says that it should not include the carrying amount of recognized liabilities unless the recoverable amount of the CGU cannot be determined without the consideration of this liability. I'll explain this point. For example, I have an asset, and along with the asset there is a decommissioning liability. So for example, asset will be PP as per Ind AS 16. So if I am transferring the asset, the buyer will also take the decommissioning liability with it. Therefore, whatever price the buyer pays, that is the fair value of the asset, shall not be calculated without taking into consideration the decommissioning liability. Hence, in such a case, the asset is clubbed with the decommissioning liability. So a similar scenario arises here where the carrying amount of the CGU also includes the carrying amount of the recognized liability. So in such cases, the recognized liability shall also be included along with the carrying amount of the asset, and both of these together will form the carrying amount of our cash generating unit. Moving on to asset classification and impairment review. This heading is not there in SN, it is made by me for the purpose of this video. So I have classified assets into two groups. Firstly is goodwill and second is other assets. The purpose was to make a specific focus on goodwill. Now goodwill can be of two types, self-generated and acquired in business combination. Self-generated is covered under Ind AS 38, intangible assets, and business combination Ind AS 103. So Ind AS 38 says that internally generated goodwill shall not be recognized in books, and therefore any such goodwill shall also not lead to impairment of the goodwill because it is not recognized in our books. But when it is recognized in our books, that is when it is an acquired goodwill, in that case we have to check for impairment. Now the question here arises is how to check goodwill for impairment, because goodwill does not generate cash flows independently. Let's assume OnePlus selling its phones. Now OnePlus has a brand name, but unless and until there is a product to sell, the brand name will not generate any goodwill. So when the brand name or the goodwill is clubbed with its mobile phones or with its televisions, only then OnePlus company is able to generate cash flows. So in a similar scenario, what happens is goodwill has to be clubbed with some other assets. That is, goodwill has to always be allocated to any CGU. Now it can be to one CGU or multiple CGUs, like I explained, either to mobile phone or to television or to both mobile phone and television. So goodwill is allocated to CGUs. Now if goodwill is allocated to CGUs, the question arises then when do we have to check for impairment, that is when do we have to do the review of impairment. So Ind AS 36 says that if goodwill acquired in business combination is allocated to CGUs, then we have to check for impairment at least annually and at the end of the reporting period, both. Now at least annually does not specifically mean the end of the reporting period, it means at any point of time in the financial year. Now it also says that for every financial year we should check impairment at the same point of time for the first point and at the end of the reporting period for the second point. Now after checking for impairment, if we arrive at the conclusion that the recoverable amount of the CGU is less than the carrying amount, then we'll impair the asset or the CGU as per Ind AS 36. Now I'm jumping on to other assets. So under other assets, I have also again made two classification. One is intangible assets with indefinite useful life or which are not yet available for use, and one is others. Now this others is a residuary topic which includes all assets except this which I have circled right now. So if there are intangible assets with indefinite useful life or which are not yet available for use, Ind AS 36 again says the same things, that we have to check for impairment at least annually and at the end of the reporting period. But if I am talking about all the other assets, that is the residuary assets, in that case we have to check for impairment whenever there is an indication. That is, we do not specifically have to check it annually or at a point of time in a financial year. We will check for impairment whenever there is any indicator. Now the next thing I am covering is the sequence of impairment. How does the process take place? So let's understand it. For example, I have an individual asset, so I'll check whether that asset generates cash flows independently. And if it does not generate cash flows independently, there can be both of these two cases. Now if it is generating cash flows independently, I'll test for impairment individually. That is, I'll check the recoverable amount and the carrying amount of that individual asset, and if the recoverable amount is higher than the carrying amount, then it is fine. But if the recoverable amount is less than the carrying amount, then I'll impair the asset. But if it is not generating the cash flows independently, then I'll group it with a CGU and I'll check the CGU's impairment, unless. This unless is important. So what happens, for example, in two cases. In these two cases, we do not check the individual asset for impairment. Now I'll explain both of these. First case is when the asset's fair value less cost of disposal is greater than the carrying amount. See, the recoverable amount means the fair value less cost of disposal and value in use, whichever is higher. And if I conclude that FVLCOD is higher than the carrying amount, that means that my recoverable amount will definitely be higher than the carrying amount, and in that case I do not have to calculate the value in use of the asset, and therefore I can conclude that the asset should not be impaired in the first case. Second case says that the asset's value in use is estimated close to the FVLCOD and FVLCOD can be determined. So this means that if the FVLCOD can be determined and if it is greater than the carrying amount, and I am estimating that the value in use is close to FVLCOD, therefore that means that there is no requirement for impairment, and therefore this forms our unless condition. In this condition, we do not check the individual asset for impairment. Now this was a topic in the SM, rolling forward detailed calculations from a preceding period. Basically what this topic wants to say that if an entity has assessed the recoverable amount of a CGU to which goodwill has been allocated, can the entity again use the same recoverable amount in the future periods? So it is basically rolling forward the recoverable amount for the future years. So why does the entity need to do this? Because assessment of a recoverable amount is not an easy task. Now assessing the recoverable amount every financial year can prove to be a tedious task, and therefore the Ind AS 36 is giving a provision to carry forward the recoverable amount once determined, but it is saying that all of the following criteria have to be met for such a condition. So there are three criteria which have to be met to roll over, to carry forward the previous year's recoverable amount. So the three conditions are: firstly, that there should not have been any significant change in the asset and liabilities. Secondly, it is saying that the recoverable amount should exceed the carrying amount. This condition is imposed because if the recoverable amount is less than the carrying amount, then there arises a case of impairment. And if the recoverable amount was higher than the carrying amount by a substantial margin, only then we can be assured that there was no case for impairment and we can roll over the recoverable amount of the previous year. And the last condition is saying, based on analysis of events that have occurred and circumstances that have changed since the most recent recoverable amount calculation, the likelihood that a current recoverable amount determination would be less than the current carrying amount is remote. The third condition is saying that there should be a remote condition that the recoverable amount is less than the current carrying amount. Because if the current carrying amount is higher than the current recoverable amount, if there are any chances to this, that means there arises a case of impairment, and therefore we have to check for the recoverable amount for this current period, and we cannot take the rollover provision. So these three conditions have to be satisfied for rolling over the recoverable amount of previous period. Now we are coming to the crux of our topic, to the main point of our topic, that is CGU and goodwill. So I have made a step-by-step procedure for this. Firstly, what we'll do is we'll measure the recoverable amount and the carrying amount of the combined CGU to which goodwill has been allocated, and we'll check whether there is any requirement for impairment. If the recoverable amount of the CGU along with the goodwill is higher than the carrying amount, in that case we do not need to do anything further. But if the recoverable amount is less than the carrying amount of CGU to which goodwill has been allocated, in that case we'll check for impairment. So we'll check for impairment, and whatever is the difference is our impairment loss, and that impairment loss will be first reduced 100% from the goodwill. So for example, if I have a goodwill of 5 lakh and impairment loss of 8 lakhs, so out of those 8 lakhs, firstly 5 lakhs shall be reduced from the goodwill itself, and the remaining 3 lakh shall be deducted from all the other assets in the CGU on a pro rata basis, that is on the basis of the assets values. This is the most important point in this concept, that firstly all of the impairment shall be reduced from the goodwill itself. Now this is important because there will be another concept of corporate assets, in which case we do not reduce all of the impairment loss directly from the corporate asset as we are doing right now in the case of goodwill. So in this, firstly we will reduce all of the impairment loss from the goodwill, and if there is any balancing figure, it will be reduced from the assets on a pro rata basis. There is also an illustration in this regard in the ICI SM, which I think I have covered in the main video on Ind AS 36. You can refer there. Now post impairment carrying amount. This is saying that the post impairment carrying amount of the individual assets shall not reduce below the highest of the fair value less cost to sell, value in use, and zero, whichever is higher of the individual asset. See, this is the condition which is saying that after impairment is allocated to the individual assets, so the individual assets shall be then valued at carrying amount minus impairment loss. So that carrying amount minus impairment loss, that is the post impairment carrying amount, shall not be lower than the highest of these three items: the fair value less cost to sale, value in use, and zero. This is an important point because an illustration may be made on this point, and we have to definitely remember these three things: fair value less cost to sale, value in use, and zero. Now whichever is higher, the impairment cannot go below that amount. Therefore, the post impairment carrying amount cannot go below this this amount, which is the highest of the FVL, CTS, VIU, and zero. Now concluding the video, there is the reversal of impairment loss for a CGU to which goodwill has been allocated. So what Ind AS 36 says here is that the reversal of impairment loss for a CGU unit shall be allocated to the assets of the unit except for goodwill, pro rata with the carrying amount of those assets. See, in the example I took in the last question, I said that the impairment loss was of 8 lakh rupees and 5 lakh has been allocated to the goodwill. Now if we are going to reverse the impairment loss, we cannot record goodwill again in our books. The reason being is that initially when the goodwill was recorded in our books, it was the purchased goodwill, and now when we impair it, the value of the goodwill was 0. Now if we are reversing the impairment loss and we are recording a goodwill, it will not be considered as a purchased goodwill, but it will be considered as an internally generated goodwill, which is prohibited by Ind AS 38 to be recorded. Therefore, because Ind AS 38 says that internally generated goodwill is not to be recorded, therefore the reversal of impairment loss cannot be allocated to the goodwill. It is directly allocated to the assets. So what this means is that when we are impairing the asset, first we'll allocate to goodwill and then to the assets. But when we are reversing the impairment loss, we cannot allocate anything to the goodwill. We'll directly allocate the reversal to the assets. That is, the carrying amount of assets shall be increased, but the carrying amount of goodwill cannot be increased because of Ind AS 38's prohibition. Now this is again an important condition, and I think there is an illustration based on this condition, that in allocating reversal of impairment loss for the CGU, the carrying amount of assets shall not be increased above the lower of recoverable amount if determinable, and the carrying amount that would have been determined net of amortization and depreciation had no impairment loss been recognized for asset in prior periods. So the question on this point has also been covered in the main video. It basically says that after reversing of impairment loss, the carrying amount of assets shall be increased. So that increased amount should not be more than the lower of these two things. That is, the increased carrying amount cannot be more than the recoverable amount. See, if the increased amount is again more than the recoverable amount, it again means that we have to impair the asset. So definitely we cannot increase the carrying amount above our recoverable amount, and secondly we cannot increase it over and above the carrying amount without after charging the depreciation and amortization, because that would have been otherwise charged if the asset was not to be impaired. So that depreciation did occur in those years where we impaired the asset, because wear and tear is a real thing, and wear and tear happened in those years when we impaired the assets. So the carrying amount after depreciation and amortization has also to be checked, and the carrying amount after reversal cannot be higher than the lower of these two amounts. The amount of reversal of impairment loss that would have otherwise been allocated to the asset is allocated pro rata to other assets of the unit except for goodwill. See, again we are not allocating to goodwill because of the prohibition of Ind AS 38. Now I'm hoping that this concept capsule helped you to revise the CGU with goodwill part. And if you liked this video and you want me to make any other concept capsule, you can comment on this video's comment box. So I'll make a video on any other concept capsule.